Hey Ross World, my money makes money. Kevin O'Leary, part three. Now, I told you about the events that took place and that I paid the $1,000 to do the workshop Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now, of course, this was maybe 1 or 2 months ago, and it took me quite some time to get in front of you and tell you the real deal. So, the very first day on Friday, when I arrived, it was, I believe, at 9 a.m. They set us down, they gave us folders, gave us our name tags, then our guest speaker or the person who was leading the class going through the program. Now, for some reason, I thought that the $1,000 was for somewhat of a real estate workshop. Now, granted, if I back up to the actual Kevin O'Leary event that had his name plastered and blasted all over it, before any huge highlighter comes out, you have your people that come on stage prior. Like if you have a big comedian, you usually have 1 or 2 comedians that come on before him, maybe do 15 to 20 minutes, and then the main comedian does an hour. This depends on who that particular comedian or actor or actress is. Nonetheless, when we first sat down and the first two people who were on stage was Danny and Dave, or Danny and somebody, but nonetheless, you can look these guys up. They are the ones who were HGTV stars who did the show Renovate to Rent, where they went, fixing up homes, renting them out, etc. That's the big thing. So the second person that came on stage was Mr. Real Estate. His name was Wayne something. I don't even recall. Now, when he came on stage, he was a salesman, all right? He was pitching. He had a pitch. He was trying to sell us something. He told us all these elaborate stories about how this is a great thing. Now, granted, I didn't have a clue what this was truly about. I thought Kevin O'Leary was going to come on stage, give us, investing advice, just all sorts of business knowledge. This is wealth of knowledge, him being a billionaire. Why would regular people want to go see a billionaire for free if they're not given information to become rich or better off than they already are? Nonetheless, Danny and Dave, I know I'm messing up one of the guys' names. They came on, they told us about their flip program, about flipping homes, basically buying a home and then selling it to 30 to 40% low of the equity. Say for instance you had a house that was worth 200,000, you paid 150,000, so you will only sell it for like 170, 180 to flip it very quickly. I got it. Some of the terms they used was like quick flip and two flip quick or something like that. Something very snazzy, something very catchy. Nonetheless, when those guys went off, they said, oh, and his Mr. Real Estate, Wayne Wonder, or whatever his name was, he can actually describe our concept, our business model better than we can. And essentially he could, because he is an expert salesman. Everything that exuded, everything that came out of his mouth was he was selling you something. But my whole thing is, okay, get to the point where what we have to do as an audience, what we have to do as investors, what we have to do as people trying to get inside whatever you're trying to get inside in order to make money. And in the back of my mind, I was saying, what does that have to do with Kevin O'Leary? Right? So nonetheless, he stood on stage like an hour and a half. The event was like 3 hours. Dan and Dave, whatever their names are, they was on stage about 45 minutes, and then Mr. Real Estate was on stage for about an hour and a half, pitching us, selling us the whole entire time. I can't even recall some of the things he was saying. Nonetheless, at the end of his presentation, if you was a true investor or if you wanted to be part of this program that he pitched, you had to pay $1,000 to be part of a 3-day workshop where you will learn how to flip homes. So I'm thinking, okay, I will be learning real estate, because some real estate, to be a real estate agent, to be a real estate broker, these things cost $500 to get your license, to get some training on it, right? Depending on where you are, it ranges from $500 to $3,000, just depending on the wealth of knowledge you're trying to get and where you are, whatever state. We got these folders, and when we went up to the table to use our credit cards and debit cards to pay for the packages for the 3-day workshop, there was these really, I call them goons, right? Because they were at the table like, all right, put your card right here, put your card right here, put your card right here, put your card right here. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we'll do that, we'll do that. And then they would just take your card using a credit card machine, a little portable one, and they give it back. Like, okay, you're taking care, and they would just move, moving. Like time was money. But I'm like, well, I came up here because I want to be a part of this. I felt rushed. I don't want to really say I felt pressure, but every fiber, right? My spidey sense went off and said, this is not a really good thing. Even though I did my homework prior to the workshop, and they had like a 4.8 rating, okay? And very few people said that this was a scam, but some people said it was a scam. So the first day of the workshop, I don't even know the guy's name, but I think if you looked him up, he flipped more than 1,000 homes in a year. He's some short, stubby guy. And the one thing that stood out about him for me was he kept saying, don't be negative. Like, I don't like negative people. If you have a negative question, then talk to my management team or talk to this management guy. And I was like, what does he mean, a negative question? Like, if we are trying to figure out how this whole thing works, and we may have questions because, you know, a lot of people thinking like, this is too good to be true. Is a gap in this plan? It's a gap in this plan. How does this work? He didn't want you to ask questions like that. He wanted you to basically to go along with this program, shut up and listen, and things of that manner. Here's another thing. You can even really ask questions because the platform never opened up. Even after the first break, he will leave out. You will get into these little small group teams where the people was just saying how great it was, how awesome it was. And it made you feel, it kind of will make you feel guilty if you would ask a question, right? You will feel like everybody's kind of looking at each other like, I don't really want to ask anything because everybody's going to looking at me like I'm a negative Nancy or, you know, they're being deceptive. But that's how I felt everybody else felt because that is exactly how I felt. So that whole long segment. So here we are after lunch. Now we're being sold again. They had all these different packages to do that was like $25,000, $26,000. I'm talking about $26,000 for a workshop, for a program to learn all these other things. Then they say, well, if you want to be part of this, where we have this software program that it only costs like $24 a month. And we also have this other program that will show you where tax liens are. This is only $15 a month. I'm throwing out arbitrary numbers, guys, but this is the base of how it was going. Like the whole entire workshop for that first day, we were being sold to, okay? They were trying to sell us something, okay? Every fiber of me, I was just like, this is not a good thing. This is not a good thing. So after that day, I asked our team rep, and I felt like he kept brushing me off. You know how somebody being brushed off, like, oh, well, you just got to go through the workshop and you have to see how things transpire. Everything, all your questions are going to be answered. I said, well, why do you have questions and answers and we get into teams if you keep not answering my questions? Well, sir, you have to finish the workshop because I said, well, I want to know these questions right now. I don't want to waste my time coming back day after day after day after day after day after. So I come back on Saturday and once again, they go through how this thing is being worked out. They throw some numbers up on the board. They show you how they do these things, but there was no set program on how you work through things. Now you have a book that you kind of go through, but in my opinion, the model was just totally wrong. I felt wrong. Here's the thing. So they say you're going to have to build an LLC. We're going to fund up to $1 million for you to go out and look for a home for you to flip. I said, okay, there's no risk. You're going to fund up to $1 million after I go look for a home to flip. So I'm going to go buy a home for $250,000, which is probably worth $300,000. I'm going to sell it for $230,000. And with the margin of error and the amount of money we get back, let's just say, for instance, it's $30,000. I know I'm throwing out a lot of numbers, but let's just say that I bought a house with their money that they will fund up to $1 million for $250,000. The home is worth $300,000, okay? So we're selling way under market value, but the amount we funded is less than what the house is worth. So there's $40,000 to $50,000 to play with. So after they take their cut, right, because they have some elaborate how, you know, we're going to take this much, take this much, take this much, and no money is coming out your pocket, you're going to get around $30,000. Now, this is just an example. Each house is different. But if you really think about it, like, why can't you just deposit the money, they say, for tax purposes Okay, then why do you need me? Basically, because we don't have everybody in every neighborhood around America to buy and flip all these homes. Because as I am getting rich or wealthy or well off, they're getting filthy rich. Okay, cool. There's no risk to me because I'm not using my money. Then they say, we're going to help you do the first house. But as that day transpired, a lot of you said, well, that's a great deal. That's not a bad idea. It isn't. But as that day transpired, the story began to change slowly and slowly and slowly. Well, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that if you don't do this package, if you don't do that package. So my message for Kevin O'Leary is you are a part of this regardless if you spoke about it on that day for your event. Because here's the thing, guys. That day, that one night event, that those 3 segments with Dave and Danny, then Mr. Real Estate, and then Mr. Wonderful, aka Kevin O'Leary. When Kevin O'Leary came on stage, he spoke nothing about real estate. He spoke nothing about those 2 segments with those 2 other groups of people, anything they spoke about, any programs, but him, he's a part of it because I looked him up. He's a part of that group, but he spoke nothing about it. So I feel like I was in Shamville. I feel like I was being shammed. I feel like I was being scammed. And so I'm saying, Kevin O'Leary, is that don't tie your name to something if you're not going to back it up. Don't tie your name to something if you're not going to support it fully, because your name was all over this event. And I'm quite disappointed in how that went. I felt like it was a quick rich scheme to get $1,000 off people who were trying to make a better way for themselves. And I told you in one of my first videos, I took a chance on Kevin O'Leary, and I feel as though that I've been let down. Because when he came on stage, I want to say it again, he spoke nothing about those people and what they were talking about. He was talking about Shark Tank, he was talking about investment, and he was talking about ETFs and index funds, which I always preach. But he spoke nothing about those real estate programs. So I'm quite disappointed. My eyes are open, and as I always know, if it's too good to be true, it is. This is Ross, where if somebody comes to you with a program, with a deal, with a situation, and it's too good to be true, make sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's. Because we know, guys, 9 times out of 10, if it's too good to be true, where they're going to fund you up to $1 million for you to go out and search for a home. And for your first home, they're going to actually help you with that to find it. And then you get the profit from that, and you can walk away with $30,000, and it didn't cost you anything. And the only thing you had to do was get an LLC. So when they give you this amount of money up to $1 million, that the taxes don't hurt your pocket because the IRS is going to throw out the red flags, then it's probably too good to be true. Mr. Wonderful. Sure. This is Raw's World. My money makes money except when I'm getting scammed. I'm out.